Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe. Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Grammarly Premium. Get a 1-month free trial of Grammarly Premium. If you need to edit those documentations or use it for proofreading, Grammarly Premium is the way to go. Also, if you want to get those views, subscribers, watch time, monetization, get your 1-month free trial of vidIQ. I'm using vidIQ and it's fantastic. Also, thank you to Amazon Music Unlimited. If you want to find out more, click on the link to my website. Welcome to the Stephen Shiels radio show. I've got Morgan Balavage from Insight Timer. How are you, Morgan?
I'm doing beautifully. How are you?
Good, Morgan. I came across you on Insight Timer. You're doing some live streaming, and I thought it was really good. How did you start working with Insight Timer?
So I was a student. I used it as a way of tracking my own meditation and learning more about it for many years. I think that was 4 years ago. And then one of my psychic friends mentioned that I should consider teaching on there. She saw it being a really good path for me. I didn't even realize you could teach on there. So I went through the application process and started posting my recordings and just started doing live events, I guess in December, so not too long ago. And it's been just such a joy to connect with the community in this way.
No, it's really good. I think what you're doing are they called oracle cards or something like that?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a cousin to tarot cards, but they're Rumi oracle cards. So where tarot cards would give you, kind of a little bit more information about the future, oracle cards are more about what you need to heal right now to connect to your spiritual self. So each one comes with some beautiful art. This is a deck by Alana Fairchild, and then they each come with a Rumi poem, and Rumi, of course, is all about connecting to love. So I find it to be a really beautiful way to connect with people who are seeking that deep healing for the traumas that have come up in their life in order to learn how to open their heart back up.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good that you're doing that. Yeah, it's always good to have... I've had some of your daily readings, and they're a great way to start the morning as well. And yeah, no, it's they're only a new thing for me. I'm just starting to look at oracle cards. Have they worked for you?
So I'll give you an example of how they work for me. But the short answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
They have. In terms of my work of as a healer, of passing healing on to other people, teaching people how to heal themselves, I pulled a card for someone during the live reading this week, and it was a card called Layla, and he said he had the same deck. He had pulled the same card for himself earlier that morning. So the way the cards work is I'm essentially tapping into the energy of whoever I'm interacting with, and I have a number of different ways of doing that. The reason I do it with the Rumi Oracle cards, specifically on Insight Timer, is because it makes it more universal, because the guidance that we receive from these cards tends to tap into a lot of general themes of suffering that we all go through, heartbreak, loneliness, grieving, feeling spiritually disconnected. So it just serves better for a group, especially a group of, random people. We can get, 200 people hanging out in that room, but we're from all over the world with a ton of different backgrounds, but we all kind of go through the same phases of human suffering. So the oracle cards help me to tap into that energy as a practitioner and deliver general guidance. But for myself, for my own healing work and healing my own journey, I find they just give me a little bit of specificity when I need some clarity on how I can soften my experience. And, there are times when I can go through phases reading very similar themes and messages in the poems, which are like, stop thinking so much, get out of your head. And that's where it's like, oh yeah, that's a good little, I kind of need that mirror outside of myself, whether it's from working with other healers or working with energy modalities like oracle cards and tarot cards and the other psychic modalities that I use. But they have been very healing for me. I do recommend people looking into this, if only for your own psychic development, by which I mean just being able to connect to how your body feels. That's all psychic. That's all it means to be psychic, is that you really understand and know how to interpret how it feels to have a body. Yeah, did that answer the question? Did I hit it?
Mm-hmm. No, that was perfect. No, to be a psychic, is that hard to do, or do you have to study to become a psychic?
Well, we all to a certain degree have varying degrees of psychic ability. It kind of depends on where you are in your spiritual path in terms of how easily it is to connect to it. People who have gone through a number of lifetimes on this earth are kind of tuned in. They just are born knowing they're psychic and just kind of setting on their path. It's kind of like starting a video game that you've played a few times before. You know what I mean? You kind of know, you kind of know the road. The details are a little bit different, but you have a little bit more familiarity with it. If you're a newer soul on this earth, you're closer to kind of the narcissist end of the spectrum, where you're really stuck in your ego, by which I mean you're just telling yourself the story of your life and you can't really see that there's so much more going on beyond, the tedious details of human suffering. Then it's going to take a little bit more work, and it's definitely a path that most people get onto as a result of spiritual suffering, and that's kind of the point. Okay, so it kind of depends on where you are in the narcissist to empath spectrum in terms of how much suffering you're willing to put yourself through to create that divine connection that gives you the type of enlightenment that allows you to develop your psychic abilities. But literally any sentient being can and develop and definitely has psychic abilities. It just depends on to what degree you've healed yourself to really tap into them.
Yeah, look, I suppose as a psychic, Morgan, can you read people's future or not?
It's an interesting question, and I put a lot of thought into it. And the answer is yes, but not really in the way that people are expecting. I think string theory kind of gets closest to it in terms of how the different dimensions and different time and different infinite universes work. But a psychic can see the most likely scenario, and depending on which energies they're working with, the one that's going to lead to more suffering and the one that's going to lead to more enlightenment, to more peace. So I've done sessions with people. They've asked me very specific questions about the future, and I'll receive an answer. But I know that there are things that can happen in this world between now and then that may shift the likelihood of that particular event happening at that time. Partially, just receiving that information of when it's going to happen can affect when it's going to happen. It's kind of like that scene in The Matrix when Keanu is seeing one of the oracles and she's like, don't apologize for the lamp. And then he looks behind him and hits the lamp and it breaks. And she's like, well, maybe you wouldn't have broken it if I hadn't told you about it, but that's what the future's like, right? Is it happening because I said it would happen, or is it happening because it was going to always be that way? And what I've learned in my work as a psychic is there tends to be a lot of peace in knowing what's going into the future that becomes stagnant. Because the reason it's so enticing to know the future is because we want to know if we're going to be happy. We want to know if we're going to find love. We want to know if we're going to be rich. right? We want to know all these things that are going to make, the creature comforts that are going to make the human experience easier. When is that going to happen? How's it going to happen? What's my soulmate's name? Am I going to have a baby, right? Like, these are all the questions that people throw at me. And I'm like, the journey here is letting the path unfold. It's not learning the future, which all of us can have access to because we can tap into anything that's ever happened, in the infinity of time, anything that has happened or will happen. The other pop culture example I like to give in terms of understanding how psychicness works is the episode of The Good Place where they talk about Jeremy Bearimy, which kind of shows like how time works, like not a linear path. There's a lot of loop-de-loops. We circle back on things. We get a lot of patterns in our life. But it extends beyond a lifetime, right? We're talking about like millennia upon millennia, beyond millions of years of things that have happened, that if you get into a deep enough space dimensionally, if you can strip away enough of how you define yourself as a human to tap into the oneness of the universe, you can access any of the energy and information of anything ever, of any possibility. But it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky, smoothing away the stone of the human ego.
Yeah, it's amazing what the universe can do. Like, Tony Robbins, I remember he's quoted, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer as well. And I suppose if you have an abundant mindset and you want to be rich, I think the universe will somehow get you to that. Have you come across any of those sorts of teachings on abundance?
It's so funny. I just posted on my Facebook page about how much I dislike Tony Robbins, and he's definitely not the first person to say that. But there's so much more that goes into it than mindset, right? There's racial privilege. There's monetary privilege. There's trauma that goes into it. So it's not just like I'm going to think I'm rich and then I'm going to become rich. Although mindset is an important part of it, the truth is the reason the rich get richer is because it's easier to make money from money, right? That's how capitalism is set up. It's a pyramid scheme. And the reason like the poor stay poor is because they're disenfranchised and they're being exploited. So it's so much more than mindset. There's so much more societally that goes into it, which is why we in the collective conscious have to make a shift away from a value system that says more money is better, and towards a value system that says the more you give away, the better.
Yeah, well, I don't think Tony Robbins explains that properly, to be honest with you, Morgan. I looked into a bit of Tony Robbins myself, but I feel that he's too focused on money. He's overcharging his seminars, which is like, $4,000 to go see him do the Unleash the Power Within as well.
I mean, he's certainly got a great business model, but the reason I don't like Tony Robbins is because there are several allegations against him about how he abuses women and uses racist terminology in his work, and those are two things that I cannot support in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where to go with his work. I mean,
there are so many other guides besides Mr. Robbins. Look to his source work, look to the books that he recommends and read where he's getting the information, because he's putting his own ego over the information, right? And he does stay focused on money because there are three things that are easy to sell: making more money, falling in love, and losing weight. So he chose, three of those, all three of them, depending on what seminar he's doing. But that's, one thing I really love about the Insight Timer is we don't have to use those marketing techniques to get to the heart of the matter, which is certainly switching your mindset is a powerful way to align yourself. But there's a lot of other practical things that go into making money, not least of which is acknowledging that we live in a severely unequal society, and that we need to make a societal shift, and that until we do that, the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer.
Yeah, Insight Timer is actually one of my favorite meditation apps to use, Morgan. I remember when Insight Timer was just sitting out there, you could on the App Store, and then now it's come a long way with the live stream.
Yeah, they've exploded hugely. They now have 18 million meditators on there. Beautifully, they've been so specific in how they've created their platform. And they've done it strategically well because there are only 10,000 teachers on there, right? So in terms of a social media network from an instructor perspective, as opposed to something like a Facebook or an Instagram where you're actually competing with your audience to get your content in front of their face, Insight Timer just so beautifully kind of organizes everything and does all the marketing for you so that it's really easy as a student to find the teachers that align with the work that you need to do, and as a teacher to find the students who need that deeper one-on-one healing work that you can provide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're doing on Insight Time is good. And it's
Thank you. I like it. I'm enjoying it. I'll keep doing it.
Spreading a positive message as well. Because I get up and watch your live stream, and I can always learn something from it.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. It's really meaningful to me when people show up at all, but especially when they show up twice. Like that. That's the repeat customer is really what hits my heart. So I really appreciate your hanging out with me while I do these lives.
And it's what are you working on for 2021? Yourself?
So many things. What aren't I working on? So I'm a master's student in traditional Chinese medicine, so that dominates most of my life. I have my website, splendid.yoga, where I list all of my offerings, which include business coaching for healers. I help healers learn how to make multiple income streams so that they can afford to live life on their terms, which includes, the healing work that they themselves need to receive. I also have my podcast, the Manage Your Money Yogically podcast, where I work on my little piece of the destruction of patriarchal capitalism, helping inform people about, interesting ways to make money, how to build multiple income streams, and how to pay off your debt if that's a part of your life. I'm hanging out on Insight Timer a bunch. I always have my one-on-one work that I do, my coaching work that I do with private clients. I'm almost sold out for the year. I'm taking 2 more clients for this year. Some of my most joyous work is that one-on-one work because we see such a deep transformation. And then I have a master class, or rather a mastermind of small group coaching, where we meet several times a month to help create multiple income streams, doing work that actually saves the world.
And also, too, have you come across any of Bob Proctor's work?
I've not heard him, but I'll look him up. What's he all about?
So he talks about a lot of the law of attraction and the paradigm from the universe as well. Like there was a movie, I think it was called The Secret from Rhonda Byrne that came out, and he was in it. But again, like, this is what I don't understand, Morgan. You get teachers that are just overpricing things.
Right. So that's so subjective, though, because give me an example of something that you think is overpriced.
Well, one time, I'll tell you a little story. I was trying to get in contact with Tony Robbins and one of his mentors about 2 years ago. Anyway, I had a free half an hour session with him, and he wanted $4,000 just for 4 45-minute Skype sessions.
Yeah.
And I felt, well, it was a bit of a dick, to be honest. And I apologize if I use that word in front of you, but that's how I just felt. And I felt it was too money hungry.
So, the number doesn't matter. The energy behind the number matters. So the reason you thought it was or money hungry is because there was a desperation behind him giving you that number. In terms of like the dollar amount, like $4,000 to some is nothing. Most people in this world will never see that amount of money at once, right? That's how the poverty line is. So it's not so much about like the dollar amount in terms of how much things cost, so much as it's about aligning yourself with the energy of someone who has created a program that you can comfortably afford, right? I know a lot of coaches encourage their students to go into debt saying it's going to be worth it because I'm going to teach you how to pay it off. And I've taken a different approach. I don't disagree with that. I've done that for myself. I've gone into debt to get trainings to build my business. Mm-hmm. But for my students, for the work that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to empower them to like have a plan, right? Save up for that money rather than just adding it to the pile of debt, which is why like the vast majority of the work I do during the week is stuff that I put out absolutely for free, you know, from the insight timers to the lives that I do in my Facebook group to my podcast to my blog, which is just like a wealth of information, to the YouTube channel. If I'm working like 4 hours a day, 3 of those hours I'm not getting paid. One of those hours I'm getting paid by someone who is paying me, you know, around $500 an hour. But they're getting massive value because they've known me for several years. They've kind of built up to that point where they're ready to invest in themselves in that way. And there's an empowerment level to it as well, where when you know, depending on how much you invest in a program, depending on how much of a reach it is for you, you're going to be that much more motivated to get the value from it. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if $4,000 feels like an insane amount of money and you're like, this person's a dick, like, yeah, forget it. That's not good energy. But that's not to say there may not be some time in your life when you do invest $4,000 to work with a coach, you know, whether it's for 4 sessions or 40 sessions, where it's going to make way more than $4,000 worth of difference in your quality of life. It's all about spending money in a way that makes you excited, not one that makes you think, you know, people suck.
I've noticed too, like, with Tony Robbins, he talks about, you know, getting over depression as well. Now, I suffer mild depression, but I feel that's sort of his marketing strategy.
Well, it's a very vulnerable population, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's easy to sell to people, to tell them, you know, I can fix this problem that's ruining your life. And he may have some solutions, and I wouldn't want them because his energy does not resonate with me, right? Like, I seek my depression healing from the nurturing feminine, the divine feminine. That's what I need. Mm-hmm. But there may be some people who need his energy. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you to the sponsors Grammarly Premium, vidIQ, and Amazon Music Unlimited. Also, subscribe to the podcast, turn on those notifications when you get a new episode, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. See you later.
At Facebook, we've tripled our safety and security teams and invested billions to keep our platforms safe. What's next? We support updated internet regulations that set clear rules for addressing today's toughest challenges. Learn more at about.fb.com/regulations.
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.